The deep space monitoring station floated silently in the void, its sensors scanning the darkness for any sign of unusual activity. Commander Vex Thon of the Galactic Confederation adjusted his forearms as he studied the readouts on his control panel. For 3 cycles, his team had been tracking strange signals coming from a small yellow star system on the outer rim of the galaxy. "Commander, we are receiving more transmissions from the target system," reported his communications officer, a tall blue-skinned Alterian named Kesva. "The signals are becoming stronger and more complex." Vex Thon moved closer to examine the data. The signals were primitive by Confederation standards, but they showed clear signs of intelligence. Radio waves, electromagnetic pulses, and what appeared to be early digital communications filled the spectrum. Most interesting was the rapid advancement in signal complexity over just the past few decades. "Have we identified the source species yet?" Vex Thon asked. "Preliminary scans indicate a bipedal species calling themselves humans," Kesva replied. "They inhabit the 3rd planet from their star. Initial analysis suggests they have only recently developed spaceflight capabilities." Vex Thon felt a familiar sense of concern. The Confederation had encountered many young species over the centuries, but something about these signals felt different. The humans seemed to be advancing their technology at an unprecedented rate. Most species took thousands of years to progress from basic radio to digital communications. These humans had done it in less than a century. "Prepare a long-range surveillance probe," Vex Thon ordered. "I want detailed information about this species before we make any decisions." 3 weeks later, the probe's data arrived at the monitoring station. Vex Thon gathered his senior staff in the main briefing chamber to review the findings. The holographic display showed a blue and green world teeming with life, but what caught everyone's attention were the artificial structures visible from orbit. "These humans have built an extensive satellite network around their planet," reported Science Officer Zelmore, an insectoid Catherian with compound eyes that gleamed in the chamber's light. "They have also established what appears to be a permanent research station orbiting their planet." The display zoomed in to show the International Space Station, with human astronauts clearly visible through the observation windows. But that was not the most surprising discovery. "Commander, look at this," Kesva said, manipulating the display to show the planet's surface. "They have developed nuclear weapons. Multiple nations on their world possess them." A concerned murmur rippled through the assembled officers. Nuclear weapons were typically developed by species shortly before they either destroyed themselves or achieved interstellar travel. Most species chose the path of self-destruction. Those that survived usually became either highly peaceful or extremely aggressive. "What is their population?" Vex Thon asked. "Over 7 billion individuals," Zelmore replied. "They have spread across every continent of their world, including the polar regions. They show no signs of population control or resource management typical of mature civilizations." Vex Thon studied the data with growing unease. Everything about these humans suggested they were a species on the verge of either collapse or explosive expansion. Their rapid technological advancement, massive population, and development of nuclear weapons created a potentially dangerous combination. "There is more, Commander," Kesva continued. "Our probe detected signs of space-based manufacturing. They appear to be building something large in orbit around their planet." The display showed partially constructed spacecraft and what looked like the beginning of a space-based industrial complex. The humans were not content to remain on their world. They were actively preparing to expand beyond it. "How long before they achieve interstellar travel?" Vex then asked. Zelmore calculated quickly. "Based on their current rate of advancement, perhaps 50 to 100 years. Possibly less if they continue to accelerate their development." The chamber fell silent. 50 years was nothing in galactic terms. The Confederation had protocols for dealing with emerging species, but those protocols assumed a much slower development timeline. Most species took millennia to progress from nuclear technology to interstellar travel. "We need to inform the Council immediately," Vex Thon decided. "This species represents a potential threat to galactic stability." 2 months later, Vex then stood before the Galactic Confederation Council on the capital world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from all 12 member species filled the Great Chamber, their various forms creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. The hegemony's reptilian delegates sat beside the crystalline Zenthari, while the energy-based Luminari flickered in their containment fields. "Honored council members," Vex Thon began, The species we have discovered poses an unprecedented challenge to our established order. He activated the holographic projector, filling the chamber with images of Earth and its human inhabitants. These humans have progressed from primitive radio to nuclear weapons in less than a century. They show no signs of the territorial limitations that constrain other species. Instead, they appear to be preparing for rapid expansion beyond their homeworld. Council leader Morthak, an ancient hegemony elder, leaned forward with interest. What makes you believe they pose a threat to the Confederation? Their aggression patterns, honored leader, Vexthon replied. Our analysis indicates they have fought countless wars throughout their history, often simultaneously across multiple continents. They have never achieved true planetary unity, yet they continue to advance technologically despite constant conflict. The Veltar representative, a collective consciousness speaking through multiple bodies, interjected. Perhaps they simply need guidance. The Confederation has successfully integrated many species into galactic civilization. With respect, Vexthon continued, most species we have encountered were either peaceful or had achieved stability before developing interstellar capabilities. These humans are neither. They are actively weaponizing space while maintaining dozens of separate territorial divisions on their homeworld. Murmurs of concern spread through the chamber. The idea of a divided, aggressive species achieving interstellar travel was troubling to beings who had spent millennia building peaceful galactic civilization. What do you recommend? Asked the Zenthari delegate, her crystalline voice ringing through the chamber. Vexthon had prepared for this question. We should establish a containment boundary around their system immediately. If we wait until they achieve interstellar travel, it may be too late to control their expansion. The debate that followed lasted for days. Some council members argued for peaceful contact and gradual integration. Others supported immediate intervention. The Luminari suggested simply monitoring the humans until they either destroyed themselves or proved worthy of contact. But the deciding factor came from an unexpected source. The probe data revealed that humans had already begun planning missions to other star systems. Their space agencies were actively researching propulsion systems that could carry them to nearby worlds within decades rather than centuries. We cannot afford to wait, Morthak finally declared. A species that develops so rapidly while maintaining such aggressive tendencies could destabilize the entire galactic community. We will dispatch a fleet to establish protective boundaries around their system. The vote was close, but the Council approved the mission. Within days, ships from multiple Confederation species began assembling at the staging point nearest to human space. The fleet would consist of vessels from 6 different species, representing the combined military might of the Confederation. As Vexthon watched the massive fleet prepare for departure, he felt a strange sense of foreboding. The Confederation had never encountered a species quite like these humans. Every previous contact had followed predictable patterns. Young species were either peaceful and eager to join galactic civilization, or aggressive and quickly contained before they could spread. But something about the human data troubled him. Their rapid advancement, their persistence in the face of obstacles, and their apparent refusal to accept limitations suggested they might not respond to containment in the expected way. The fleet departed 3 days later, carrying representatives from 6 Confederation species and enough firepower to subdue any primitive civilization. They expected to find a single inhabited world with basic space travel capabilities. They expected compliance when faced with superior technology. They expected another routine integration of a young species into the galactic order. They had no idea that they were about to encounter something that would change the galaxy forever. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the Luna Base Defense Station, watching the sensor displays with growing concern. 3 days ago, the deep space monitoring arrays had detected massive energy signatures approaching the outer solar system. Whatever was coming toward Earth was big, and it was definitely not human. Admiral, we're getting clearer readings now, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Multiple large vessels, estimated total fleet size of over 200 ships. They're decelerating from faster than light speeds. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was arriving in force. What's their estimated time to Earth orbit? At current deceleration rate, approximately 18 hours, Jackson replied. But Admiral, they're not heading directly for Earth. They're taking up positions throughout the outer solar system. Sarah activated the secure communication link to Earth Defense Command. Within minutes, the faces of military leaders from every major nation appeared on her screen. The emergency session of the United Earth Defense Council was already in session. Admiral Chen, came the voice of General Rodriguez from Earth Defense Command. What's the current situation? We have confirmed extraterrestrial vessels entering our solar system, Sarah reported. They appear to be taking up strategic positions around our outer planets. Their technology is clearly more advanced than ours, but their intentions are unknown. President Morrison of the North American Federation leaned forward. Have they attempted any communication? Not yet, sir. They're maintaining radio silence while deploying what appears to be a containment formation around our system. The word containment sent a chill through the assembled leaders. It suggested the aliens viewed humanity as something to be controlled rather than contacted. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the chief xenobiologist, spoke up from her laboratory in Geneva. If they're maintaining distance while taking strategic positions, it could indicate they're being cautious. They might be as uncertain about us as we are about them. Or they're preparing for an invasion, countered General Petrov from the Russian Federation. We should prepare our defenses immediately. Sarah was about to respond when her communications officer suddenly straightened. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the alien fleet and it's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it through, Sarah ordered. The main display flickered, then showed the image of an imposing reptilian creature with 4 arms and glowing yellow eyes. When it spoke, the universal translator built into human communication systems struggled to convert the alien language into understandable speech. Inhabitants of the 3rd planet, the creature began, its voice carrying an unmistakable tone of authority. I am Fleet Commander Morketh of the Galactic Confederation. Your species has been identified as a potential threat to galactic stability and peace. Sarah exchanged glances with her officers. A threat? Humanity had barely managed to establish a few colonies in their own solar system. You will immediately cease all military space activities and submit to Confederation oversight, the alien continued. Your development will be restricted to your home planet and its immediate vicinity. Any attempt to expand beyond the boundaries we establish will be met with force. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the human command centers in stunned silence. Sarah was the first to recover. Get me a direct line to Earth Defense Command, she ordered, and start bringing all our defense systems online. It looks like we're about to find out if our preparations were worth anything. Within hours, the alien ultimatum had been broadcast across Earth. The reaction was swift and universal. From the sprawling cities of Asia to the research stations in Antarctica, humanity's response was the same: defiance. In the emergency session of the United Earth Defense Council, the debate was short and decisive. They want us to submit before we've even had a chance to talk, said President Chen of the Asian Coalition. That's not negotiation. That's conquest. Our colonies on Mars and Europa represent years of effort and thousands of lives, added Prime Minister Williams of the European Union. We will not abandon them because some aliens think we're inconvenient. General Rodriguez pulled up the strategic display showing human positions throughout the solar system. Our forces are limited compared to theirs, but we're not defenseless. The orbital defense platforms are operational, and our ships are armed with the best weapons we can build. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication link from Luna. Base. Admiral Sarah Chen speaking for the United Earth Defense Force. Give me the authority to respond to their ultimatum. You have it, President Morrison declared. All in favor? The vote was unanimous. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the broad-spectrum transmitter. Her message would reach not only the alien fleet but every human settlement in the solar system. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, responding to the ultimatum delivered by the Galactic Confederation. Humanity rejects your demands completely. We bow to no one. We will not be confined to our home planet, and we will not abandon our colonies or our people. If you want our surrender, come and take it. The response from the alien fleet was immediate. Commander Morketh appeared on screen again, his reptilian features showing clear surprise and anger. Your primitive species dares to refuse the will of the Confederation? You have no understanding of the forces you face. We offer you one final opportunity to comply. Sarah looked directly into the camera, knowing that her words would be remembered for generations. Commander, you made one critical mistake. You threatened our people and demanded our submission before you bothered to learn who we are. We are humans. We don't negotiate from our knees. She cut the transmission and turned to her staff. All stations prepare for combat. Send the activation signal to all defense platforms and forward bases. It's time to show our visitors what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire history fighting for survival. Across the solar system, human forces responded to the call. The Mars defense grid powered up its railgun batteries. Europa Station launched its complement of armed shuttles. The asteroid mining facilities activated their improvised weapon systems. Most importantly, the hidden military installations that had been secretly constructed over the past decade revealed themselves. The aliens had expected to find a primitive species confined to a single world. Instead, they discovered that humans had militarized their expansion from the beginning. Every colony had defenses. Every mining station had weapons. Every research outpost was prepared for war. Admiral, reported Commander Jackson, the alien fleet is beginning to move. It looks like they're targeting our outer colonies first. Sarah nodded grimly. They want to cut off our outlying positions before moving on Earth. Standard military doctrine. Unfortunately for them, they're dealing with a species that wrote the book on unconventional warfare. She activated the fleet communication system. All human forces, this is Admiral Chen. The aliens think they can intimidate us by attacking our colonies. They're about to learn their first lesson about humanity. We protect our own, and we make our enemies pay for every inch. The first alien ships approached the asteroid belt, where human mining operations had been working for over a decade. The aliens expected to find helpless civilian installations. Instead, they encountered the first surprise in what would become a very educational war. The mining ship suddenly lit up with weapons fire. Humans had converted their industrial equipment into instruments of war with typical human ingenuity. Mining lasers became directed energy weapons. Ore haulers became missile platforms. The asteroid belt itself became a maze of hidden gun positions and booby traps. Commander Morketh watched his forward scouts retreat in confusion as human forces struck from unexpected positions throughout the asteroid field. Several alien ships had taken significant damage from weapons that shouldn't have existed. How are they doing this? He demanded of his tactical officer. Our intelligence indicated they had only basic space travel capabilities. Sir, it appears they have weaponized their entire colonial infrastructure. Every human installation we've encountered has been prepared for combat. Morketh studied the tactical display with growing unease. The humans weren't just defending randomly. They were implementing coordinated defensive strategies across multiple locations simultaneously. Their response time was impossibly fast, and their tactical adaptability was unlike anything in Confederation records. Prepare for full assault, he ordered. We will overwhelm them with superior numbers and technology. But as his fleet moved deeper into the solar system, Morketh began to realize that the Confederation might have made a serious miscalculation. These humans didn't fight like any species they had encountered before. They didn't just defend their positions. They learned from each engagement and adapted their tactics in real time. The war had begun, but it was already becoming clear that it would not go according to Confederation expectations. 3 weeks had passed since the first alien ships entered the asteroid belt, and Commander Morketh was beginning to understand why the Confederation had never encountered a species like humanity. His fleet had engaged human forces in dozens of small battles, and each one taught him something disturbing about these primitive creatures. Sir, we've lost another reconnaissance ship near Europa, reported his tactical officer, a nervous Veltar named Seklin. The humans destroyed it using modified ice mining equipment. Morketh studied the battle reports with growing frustration. Ice mining equipment. The humans had somehow converted civilian ice harvesting tools into weapons powerful enough to damage Confederation warships. It defied every assumption about technological development that the Confederation had built over centuries of galactic expansion. How many ships have we lost so far? He asked. 17 destroyed, 32 damaged and requiring repair, Seklin replied. The humans have lost approximately 40 vessels, but sir, most of their losses were converted civilian craft. Their actual military ships remain largely intact. That was another disturbing pattern. The humans seemed to view their civilian infrastructure as expendable military assets. They converted mining ships, research vessels, and cargo haulers into weapons platforms without hesitation. No other species had ever shown such casual willingness to militarize their entire civilization. What about their defensive positions? Morketh inquired. That's where the real problem lies, sir, Seklin admitted. Every time we neutralize one of their defensive installations, they seem to have backup positions we didn't know about. And sir, they're learning from our attacks. Morketh moved to the tactical display showing the inner solar system. Human positions were marked in red, and there were far more of them than there had been 3 weeks ago. They're not just defending, he realized. They're expanding their defensive network while we're fighting them. It was true. While the Confederation fleet had been engaging human forces in the outer system, the humans had been rapidly constructing new defensive platforms around Earth and Luna. They were using the time gained by their outer defenses to strengthen their core positions. Sir, incoming priority message from the flagship, announced the communications officer. Fleet Commander Zethka appeared on the main display, his forearms moving in agitation. The hegemony commander looked stressed, which was unusual for his species. Morketh, what is your status? Zethka demanded. We continue to advance toward the inner system, but progress is slower than anticipated, Morketh reported carefully. The humans are proving more resilient than expected. Resilient? Zethka's voice rose. They're supposed to be a primitive species with basic technology. How are they causing casualties to a Confederation fleet? Morketh had been dreading this conversation. Sir, our initial intelligence was incomplete. These humans have militarized their entire space infrastructure. They don't distinguish between civilian and military assets the way we do. Everything they build is designed to be converted into a weapon if necessary. That's impossible, Zethka declared. No species can maintain such a militaristic stance without destroying itself through internal conflict. Sir, the humans appear to have done exactly that. They've spent their entire history fighting each other, but they've united against external threats with remarkable speed. Zethka was quiet for a long moment. Are you telling me that a species that couldn't achieve planetary unity has somehow organized effective resistance against the Confederation? Sir, I'm telling you that they don't need planetary unity the way we understand it. They coordinate their military efforts while maintaining separate political structures. It actually makes them harder to defeat, because there's no central authority to target. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Morketh to return his attention to the tactical situation. His fleet was approaching Mars orbit, where the humans had established what appeared to be their strongest defensive position outside of Earth itself. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Mars defense grid, reported the communications officer. The main display showed a human woman in military uniform. She appeared to be middle-aged with short gray hair and determined eyes. I am Colonel Amanda Foster, commanding officer of Mars defense grid. You are approaching sovereign human territory. Turn back now or we will open fire. Morketh activated the response channel. Colonel, I am Commander Morketh of the Galactic Confederation. You are outgunned and outmanned. Surrender your position and your people will be treated fairly. The human colonel smiled, which Morketh found unsettling. In his experience, his species only smiled when they believed they had an advantage. Commander, you've been fighting us for 3 weeks now. How's that working out for you? Before Morketh could respond, the human cut the transmission. Seconds later, the Mars defense grid opened fire. What followed was unlike any battle in Confederation history. The humans didn't just defend their positions. They actively hunted Confederation ships using tactics that no military academy had ever taught. They used the planet's magnetic field to mask their approach vectors. They launched missiles that followed seemingly random flight paths, before suddenly converging on their targets. They even used Mars's moons as slingshots to accelerate projectiles to incredible velocities. But the most disturbing development came 2 hours into the battle. A human boarding party managed to capture one of Morketh's destroyers. Sir, we've lost contact with the Revenge of Nexus, Seklin reported, his voice tight with disbelief. The last transmission indicated that humans had breached the hull and were fighting inside the ship. How is that possible? Morketh demanded. They don't have boarding craft capable of matching our hull designs. Sir, they used their spacesuits. They launched themselves from their defensive platforms using magnetic accelerators and attached to our hull with improvised grappling systems. Morketh stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had turned themselves into living missiles, launching through space in simple pressure suits to board enemy vessels. It was suicidal, desperate, and completely effective. "Sir, the captured destroyer is turning toward our formation," Seklin reported. "The humans appear to have taken control of it." That was when Morketh understood the true scope of the disaster. The humans hadn't just captured a Confederation ship. They were now learning Confederation technology firsthand. Within hours, they would understand how their weapons worked, how their shields functioned, and how their faster-than-light drives operated. "All ships, implement full quarantine protocols," Morketh ordered. "No human forces are to be allowed near any intact Confederation technology." But it was too late. The humans had already breached that barrier, and they were learning fast. Over the next week, Morketh watched in growing horror as the humans began adapting Confederation technology to their own purposes. They couldn't reproduce it exactly, but they found ways to incorporate alien principles into their existing designs. Human ships began appearing with hybrid weapon systems that combined human ingenuity with Confederation science. Even worse, the humans started predicting Confederation tactics. They seemed to understand how the Confederation fleet would respond to various situations, and began setting traps accordingly. "Sir, we need to request reinforcements," Seklin suggested after the fleet lost 3 more ships to a human ambush using captured Confederation weapons. "No," Morketh replied, studying the strategic display. "We need to inform the Council that our assumptions about this species were completely wrong." He activated the long-range communicator and sent an urgent message back to Confederation space. To the Galactic Confederation Council. "The human species does not conform to any known patterns of development or behavior. They have unified against external threats while maintaining internal divisions. They have militarized their entire civilization without destroying themselves. They adapt to new technology faster than any species on record. They show no respect for conventional tactical doctrine and appear to view every engagement as a learning opportunity. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment of the situation." As he sent the message, Morketh realized that the Confederation had made a fundamental error. They had assumed that a young species would behave like other young species they had encountered. They had expected compliance, or at least conventional resistance that could be overcome with superior technology and numbers. Instead, they had encountered something unprecedented, a species that treated war not as an unfortunate necessity, but as a problem to be solved through innovation and determination. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were studying their opponents, learning their weaknesses, and preparing for something that made Morketh deeply uncomfortable. They were preparing to take the fight to the Confederation. Late that night, as Morketh reviewed the casualty reports and damage assessments, he made a disturbing realization. The Confederation fleet was not winning this conflict. They were not even holding their own. Despite superior numbers and technology, they were slowly being outmaneuvered and outfought by a species that had achieved spaceflight less than a century ago. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Morketh began to wonder if the Confederation had made an enemy it could not defeat. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the massive holographic display in the newly constructed Strategic Command Center, buried deep beneath Luna's surface. 6 weeks had passed since first contact, and the war had reached a turning point that no one in the Galactic Confederation could have predicted. "Admiral, Operation Starfall is ready for implementation," reported General Martinez, the head of the newly formed Interstellar Strike Command. "All attack groups are in position and waiting for your authorization." Sarah studied the display showing human fleets positioned throughout the solar system. But these were not the same defensive forces that had fought the initial battles. These were purpose-built warships incorporating captured alien technology and powered by human determination to end the threat permanently. "Confirm readiness status for all strike groups," Sarah ordered. "Strike Group Alpha ready. Target Hegemony Home System," came the first response. "Strike Group Beta ready. Target Zenthari Crystal Worlds," followed the second. "Strike Group Gamma ready. Target Veltar Collective Hubs." The reports continued until all 12 target systems were confirmed. In a single coordinated assault, humanity was about to attack the home worlds of every species that had participated in the invasion of their solar system. "Ma'am, are we certain this is the right course of action?" asked Dr. Hayes, who had been appointed as the civilian advisor to the military command. We could attempt negotiations now that we've demonstrated our capabilities. Sarah turned to face the scientist. Dr. Hayes, they came to our system with a fleet and demanded our surrender, without any attempt at peaceful contact. They attacked our colonies and killed our people. They made their intentions clear from the beginning. But Admiral, we're talking about attacking their homeworlds, billions of civilians who had nothing to do with the decision to invade us. And they were prepared to subjugate billions of humans who had nothing to do with their galactic politics, Sarah replied firmly. They crossed our boundary. Now they get to live with the consequences, General. Martinez activated the tactical display, showing the captured Confederation vessel that had provided humanity with the star charts and technology they needed for interstellar travel. The intelligence we gathered from the captured destroyer was invaluable, he explained. We now know the location of every major Confederation world, their defensive capabilities and their military deployment patterns. More importantly, we know they're not expecting any kind of counterattack. Sarah nodded. The alien prisoners had been shocked when human interrogators revealed that their species' first instinct upon being attacked was not to defend, but to eliminate the source of the threat. The concept of taking a war to the enemy's home territory seemed foreign to most galactic species. What's the status of our technological integration? Sarah asked. Chief Engineer Rebecca Wong stepped forward. We've successfully reverse-engineered their faster-than-light drive systems and adapted them to our ship designs. Our vessels can now reach any Confederation world within days rather than decades. We've also improved their shield technology and incorporated their energy weapons into our existing armament. And our tactical advantages? The alien species have grown complacent through centuries of peaceful expansion, reported Intelligence Director James Park. Their military doctrines haven't changed in generations because they've never faced serious opposition. They're not prepared for the kind of adaptive warfare that humans excel at. Sarah studied the faces of her staff. These were people who had spent their careers preparing for conflicts that might never come. Now they were planning the largest military operation in human history, an operation that would either establish humanity as a galactic power or result in their complete destruction. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 weeks ago we were a species confined to one star system, struggling to establish colonies on nearby worlds. Today, we're about to launch simultaneous attacks on 12 different star systems across hundreds of light years. History will remember this moment. She paused, looking at each person in the room. The Confederation made one critical mistake. They assumed that because we were young and relatively primitive, we would behave like every other species they had encountered. They expected us to either submit or put up token resistance before being overwhelmed. They didn't understand that humans don't just fight to survive, General Martinez added. We fight to win, and we don't stop fighting until the threat is eliminated. Sarah activated the fleet communication system. Across the solar system, the faces of ship commanders appeared on screens in the command center. These were the men and women who would carry humanity's response to the stars. This is Admiral Chen to all strike group commanders. You have your targets and your mission parameters. The Confederation brought war to our doorstep, and now we're taking it to theirs. Show them what happens when they underestimate humanity. The first ships began disappearing into faster-than-light travel, carrying human forces toward targets that had known peace for centuries. The Confederation worlds had no idea what was coming for them. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Captain Lisa Park watched the stars shift around her ship as they entered hyperspace. Her target was the hegemony capital world of Nexus Prime, the political center of the Confederation. Intelligence suggested it was defended by a small patrol fleet and orbital defense platforms designed more for show than actual combat. Captain, we'll reach the hegemony system in 6 hours, reported her navigation officer. Strike Group Alpha is maintaining formation, and all systems are operational. Captain Park nodded, studying the tactical information about their target. Nexus Prime was home to over 2 billion hegemony citizens and served as the seat of the Confederation government. It had not experienced warfare in over 3,000 years. Prepare all weapon systems and deploy our electronic warfare packages, she ordered. The moment we drop out of hyperspace, I want every Confederation sensor in the system blinded. Meanwhile, on the Zinthari homeworld of Crystal Falls, the beautiful geometric cities rose like living jewels from the planet's surface. The crystalline inhabitants went about their daily routines, unaware that human ships were approaching their system at faster than light speeds. The Zenthari had been among the most vocal supporters of the invasion of human space. Their representatives had argued that young aggressive species needed to be contained before they could threaten galactic civilization. They had never considered that the young species might refuse to be contained. Strike Group Beta, commanded by Captain Rodriguez aboard the UES Vengeance, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zenthari system. The crystal being's technology was focused on energy manipulation and defensive shields, but their weapons were primarily designed for planet-based warfare. Captain, we're detecting 12 orbital defense platforms and approximately 30 patrol vessels, reported the tactical officer. They're beginning to respond to our arrival. Begin the assault, Captain Rodriguez ordered. Target their defense platforms first, then move on to military installations on the planet's surface. The same scenario was playing out across 12 different star systems. Human strike groups were appearing without warning in the heart of Confederation space, attacking worlds that had never been threatened by external forces. On Nexus Prime, the Confederation Council was in emergency session when the first reports arrived. Fleet Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from multiple home systems, reported the panicked communications officer. Hegemony, Zenthari, Veltar, and 9 other worlds are under attack. Fleet Admiral Kess Moore, the elderly Hegemony commander responsible for the entire Confederation military, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. That's impossible, he declared. The humans don't have interstellar travel capabilities. Our intelligence was very clear on this point. Sir, the attacks are confirmed. Human ships are engaging our forces throughout Confederation space. Kessmore activated the priority communication system, trying to contact the invasion fleet still fighting in human space. The response came from Commander Morketh, who looked haggard and defeated. Fleet Admiral, the humans captured one of our destroyers 6 weeks ago. They've been reverse engineering our technology since then. They now have faster-than-light capability and intimate knowledge of our strategic positions. How many ships do they have? Kessmore demanded. Unknown, sir. They've been building new vessels while fighting us here. Every human shipyard in their system has been working at maximum capacity. The full scope of the disaster was beginning to become clear. While the Confederation fleet had been focused on conquering human space, the humans had been studying Confederation technology and preparing their response. They had turned the invasion into an opportunity to learn about their enemies and develop the capabilities needed to strike back. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet in our system. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the main display, standing on the bridge of the UES Prometheus as human ships engaged Confederation forces throughout the Nexus Prime system. Fleet Admiral Kess Moore, Sarah began. 6 weeks ago, your forces entered our system and demanded our surrender. You tried to confine us to our homeworld and threatened our people. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first deep space starbase. The structure floated in what had once been the heart of Confederation space, a massive symbol of the new reality that had emerged from the ashes of the old galactic order. Admiral, the final surrender documents have been signed, reported Captain Martinez, handing her a data pad containing the formal end of hostilities. The last of the Confederation holdout worlds has agreed to the new terms. Sarah accepted the pad and reviewed the terms that humanity had imposed on their former enemies. The conditions were not designed for revenge, but for practical necessity. The galaxy needed a new structure, and humanity intended to provide it. What's the status of the integration programs? She asked. Better than expected, Captain Martinez replied. The Veltar Collective has been the most cooperative. They're actually requesting permission to study human military tactics. The Zenthari have agreed to share their crystal technology in exchange for protection from potential threats. Even the Hegemony has begun sending diplomatic missions to Earth. Sarah nodded, but her attention was focused on the data flowing across the displays throughout the observation deck. Reports from dozens of star systems showed the same pattern. Former Confederation worlds accepting human leadership not because they were forced to, but because they recognized that humanity offered something the Confederation never had. Admiral Chen, came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Hayes approaching with several alien representatives. The xenobiologist had become humanity's chief liaison with the former Confederation species, helping to establish the new diplomatic relationships that would define the post-war galaxy. Dr. Hayes, how are our guests adapting to the new arrangements? Surprisingly well, Dr. Hayes replied. I'd like you to meet Ambassador Velthara of the Veltar Collective and Engineer Zexkol of the Zinthari Republic. The Veltar representative, a tall humanoid with silver skin and large eyes, stepped forward. Admiral Chen, my people wish to express their gratitude for humanity's protection of our shipping routes. The pirate attacks that plagued us for decades have ended since your patrols began. The Zinthari Republic also wishes to thank humanity, added the crystalline engineer. Your defensive technologies have allowed us to focus on peaceful development for the first time in centuries. Sarah studied the two aliens with interest. You're thanking us for conquering you? Velthara exchanged a look with Zexkol before responding. Admiral, you did not conquer us. You liberated us from a system that had become corrupt and ineffective. The Confederation spoke of peace, but it could not provide security. It promised stability, but it could not adapt to changing circumstances. The old system was built on the assumption that all species would follow the same predictable patterns, Zexkol added. When humanity proved those assumptions wrong, the entire structure collapsed. You have given us something better, Dr. Hayes smiled. This is what I wanted to show you, Admiral. The former Confederation species aren't viewing humanity as conquerors. They see us as problem solvers. Sarah walked to the main display, which showed a real-time map of human-controlled space. The territory had expanded far beyond the original Confederation boundaries, incorporating dozens of systems that had requested human protection. How many requests for membership have we received this week? She asked. 17, Captain Martinez replied. Most of them are from species on the Galactic Rim, who were never part of the Confederation. Word is spreading that humanity provides security and stability, without the bureaucratic restrictions that limited development under the old system. And our exploration fleets? They've identified over 200 habitable systems within our expanded territory. The colonization ships are already en route to the first wave of targets. Sarah nodded. Humanity's expansion was no longer limited by the need to defend against external threats. The former Confederation species had provided detailed star charts and technological assistance that accelerated human development by centuries. Admiral, Dr. Hayes said, there's something else you should know. We've been receiving reports from our deep space reconnaissance missions. There are other powers in the galaxy, much older and more powerful than the Confederation ever was. How much more powerful? Sarah asked. The preliminary report suggests civilizations that have existed for millions of years. They control entire galactic regions and possess technology that makes even our current capabilities look primitive. Sarah considered this information carefully. Have they shown any interest in our expansion? Not yet, Dr. Hayes replied. But our intelligence suggests they're aware of what happened to the Confederation. They're watching to see what humanity does next. Captain Martinez pulled up a long-range sensor display. Admiral, we're already detecting scout ships at the edge of our territory. Someone is definitely keeping an eye on us. Sarah smiled, the expression carrying both anticipation and challenge. Good, let them watch. The Confederation made the mistake of underestimating humanity, because we were young and appeared primitive. These older civilizations won't make the same error. She turned to address the assembled group. 6 months ago, the galaxy thought it knew what to expect from a young species like humanity. They expected submission or token resistance. They expected us to follow the same patterns as every other species they had encountered. Instead, they discovered that humans don't accept limitations imposed by others, Captain Martinez added. We don't negotiate from positions of weakness, and we don't leave threats to our people unaddressed. Ambassador Velthara spoke up. Admiral, my people have studied human history since joining your alliance. Your species has spent its entire existence adapting to challenges that would have destroyed others. You have never known true peace, so you have never grown complacent. That is why the older galactic powers are concerned, Engineer Zexkol continued. They have spent millions of years in stable, peaceful civilizations. They have grown comfortable with their power and their positions. Humanity represents something they have never encountered. A species that treats conflict as an opportunity for growth, rather than a problem to be avoided. Sarah walked to the observation window, looking out at the busy traffic of ships moving through what was now the center of human space. Vessels from dozens of species worked alongside human ships, all flying under the protection of the new galactic order that humanity had established. Dr. Hayes, what's your assessment of our chances if these older powers decide we're a threat? The xenobiologist considered the question carefully. Based on what we learned from the Confederation conflict, I believe humanity's greatest advantage is unpredictability. We don't follow established patterns of behavior. We adapt faster than most species can respond to changes. Also, Captain Martinez added, we're not fighting alone anymore. Half the galaxy has joined our alliance willingly. They've seen what happens when you partner with humanity versus what happens when you oppose us. Admiral Chen activated the interstellar communication system, sending a message that would reach every human ship and station across hundreds of light years. This is Admiral Chen to all human forces and allied vessels. 6 months ago, the galaxy crossed humanity's boundary expecting to find a primitive species they could easily control. Instead, they awakened something that has fundamentally changed the nature of galactic civilization. She paused, watching the status displays show human fleets patrolling star systems that had never known such security. We are no longer confined to our home system. We are no longer limited by the expectations of others. Humanity has proven that young species don't have to accept the limitations imposed by older civilizations. We have shown that determination and adaptability can overcome superior numbers in technology. The communication reached ships carrying human crews toward the galactic core, where ancient civilizations waited with growing unease. It reached colonies being established on worlds that had never known human presence. It reached the diplomatic missions that were negotiating with species who had never heard of Earth until 6 months ago. But our expansion is just beginning, Sarah continued. There are older powers in this galaxy who believe their age gives them the right to control the destiny of younger species. They believe their experience makes them superior to those who have not had millions of years to perfect their civilizations. She looked out at the stars that no longer represented a barrier to human ambition. They are about to learn the same lesson the Confederation learned. Humanity does not accept limitations. We do not bow to authority we did not choose, and we do not allow threats to our people and our allies to go unanswered. The transmission ended, but its message echoed through human space and beyond. On worlds that had existed since before Earth's sun was born, ancient beings studied the reports of humanity's expansion with growing concern. They had watched the destruction of the Confederation with detached interest, assuming it was merely the replacement of one young galactic power with another. Now they realized their mistake. Humanity was not just another galactic power. It was something entirely new.